My name's David Lewis. I'm the Water Strategic Initiative Leader for UCANR, and I just want to welcome you on behalf of all the Strategic Initiative Leaders to this series on how to do how-to videos. We started this back in January with the idea that we'd have in-person clinics, and I'm really grateful for the whole team that's working on this, and I'll introduce them in a minute, that we were able to pivot and bring it to you in this format, a four-part series to help you get up to speed and have the skills and confidence to do your own instructional videos, your own how-to videos for your extension program. The organizing team deserves a large round of applause and thanks. It includes Peter Cosina from IPM, Dustin Blakely, an advisor in Inyo and Mono County and County Director, Jolyn Miller, also County Director and Advisor, Linda Forbes from Strategic Communications, some early input from Lauren Snowden from the statewide Master Gardener Program. All of them have contributed to the content and the tools that are now available to you to help you be a successful video productionist. So thank you to them. And again, on behalf of the strategic initiatives, we hope this is one small way, working closely with Mark Bell and our leadership, that we can reach across the different programs and disciplines and support you. And it couldn't come at a better time, given both the ways in which people are living and working today, and just our needs to have a better and more clear prominence in this field of how-to videos. So with that, let me just explain that, we know you're here for your own program and your own potential project ideas, but really this represents an opportunity for all of us. I think it was Linda Forbes that said, let's take YouTube. Why not? Let's take it over. And there's all different kinds of videos on YouTube that many of us, daily access on our own. I just recently went on to try to figure out how to get water spots off a shower door, just for example. So I know you're doing similar things. But maybe one question just to point out what a real opportunity this represents for ANR is just to ask you what you might think, let you reflect for a minute, where do educational videos sit in terms of how many views they get? And just really what this opportunity for ANR could be. And so the answer to this, as you've been thinking about it, is actually that they're the second highest viewed type of material on YouTube. So why not take it over? Why not get our content and the amazing information that we have out through this venue? Why not add to your program an extension production video, a how-to video? So there's the individual goal and the goal for the organization overall. We view this four-part series as connecting you to the resources and training that will really launch you into this arena. If you've been following with us and staying with us from what we originally wanted to do to postponing to then announcing this four-part series, it's always been around first planning your project, giving you the tools to really be successful at laying out your project and understanding what you want to accomplish. We've asked you to try to have that work done by today. If you don't have it done yet, that's okay. We'll be able to catch you up and route you to where you can more fully complete your project and complete the tools needed to plan your project. Today is about the video and audio capture, so the equipment and the do's and don'ts and some ways to avoid mistakes that often happen when you first try to go out and do this kind of work. So that's what today's webinar is about, the actual capture of both video and audio. Part 3 will be another self-learning installment. You'll be getting instructions early next week from us, maybe even by Friday, that'll direct you to how to start editing, how to access the software, and even give you an exercise with some example pieces of video and audio to piece together through an instructional video. So by the end of part 3, you'll have some idea of how to use software and how to do that editing. And we'd like you to try to have that done by May 12th, which would then set you up to participate in part 4, the webinar on May 12th, where we'll really have a rich discussion. We'll see what technical questions you still want to get answered, and really dive into what else to help you make your projects be successful. So with that idea of the 4 parts and what we want to cover today, I'll jump into more detail what we're going to cover today, but let me just say, all that you need really lives in 2 places. First and foremost, it lives on the Learning and Development website, and if you use this top URL, this top web address, and just remember video tools, ucanr.edu video tools, you'll get to that part of the Learning and Development site. And many of the templates, the equipment lists that we're going to share today, even some other pre-recorded how to make videos, webinars, are all housed there, all there ready for you to access and continue your learning. And then secondly, and I know Dustin will pick up on this a little later, but he started a how-to video site that really mirrors the 4 parts of this training. And he's got that up and running. He already has part 1 there live with lots of information, even a deeper dive into the pre-planning for a video project. And soon after today, he'll post part 2. So again, just an evergreen, deeper dive into information about how to make these how-to videos. So again, these 2 resources, really all you need to know to keep your learning going, and to know that the tools that we're going to share and continue to share through this series are archived for you going forward. So what's going to happen today? We are going to back up and cover part 1 a little bit, and Petar Kucina is going to lead us on that. Really important to do your planning, to really think through your project, both what you want to accomplish and the video and audio aspects of it. We'll then spend a little time on production checklist. This is another useful planning tool just to make sure you've got all the elements and the equipment and the projects ready to go before you actually go action, before you actually start capturing. And I really want to pause here and stress that those first 2 main bullets are so important to the success of a project. And it's why we're going to spend a little time on them today. I think the adage is, if you can do 90% planning and 10% action, you'll be successful. So keep that in mind. We are going to take today is really purposely a deep dive into video and audio capture, and with some subsections there around the types of equipment and software you might want to consider. Some really good examples. Jolynn, Petar, Dustin have all pulled some really great examples together to help you understand what makes good audio and what makes bad audio. And similarly for video, different kinds of shots that you may want to take that really add variety and help with the engagement of your video production piece. Then we want to just bring up a couple of examples of how-to videos and have a discussion with you, have some questions and answers, and just have you see some good examples and what really works well in a how-to video. And lastly, we'll want to talk about support for you for equipment and software going forward. So with that, we will start to make a transition. I have a couple just housekeeping things for you. Do know that the Sherry Cooper, Kelly McFarland, Julia Malika, they're all on with us. They're going to help us track your comments, your questions. We'd really like you to use the question and answer section for questions that you have. That way we can track them and really get to them. But we've got some folks helping us, so we won't miss anything when you put some comments or questions into either venue or either option and tool. And then what I want to say is, we're going to be making transitions between different examples of audio and video, and between Dustin and Petar and myself. So there'll be some pauses. So just know that we need to do that for you. And then lastly, as we work through each section of today's webinar, we will pause and really make sure we get your questions answered and we reflect on those. So there'll be some moments where we take a time out between content and try to answer your questions. So with that, I'll stop my share and gonna let Petar Kucina come in and bring up what he wants to, his content about the storyboards and just the importance of that planning aspect to a successful video project.
Okay, I am unmuted, so hopefully you can hear me and see what I'm sharing on the screen. Just I will say it once more. If you have a question, and we really hope you will have questions, use Q&As, because in that way we will not miss them. In the chat, they can disappear as more people join the chat. So after our past webinar, we have got about 12 proposals for creating short videos, some of them in form of script, some of them in form of storyboard. And I went through them and summarized few points to remind us, or those who didn't participate or didn't hear the first webinar a month ago, about few things prior you start filming actually. So I want to start with that there is a difference, at least in my mind, between instructional video, PR video, and interview. Instructional and PR videos usually are planned ahead and scripted, which helps you to really prepare well and decide the right words for explaining the message that you want to share. In interview, you much more depend on what happens in the moment of interview, and there needs to be often more editing, not always, but usually more editing that needs to be done there. I want to stress also that instructional video, in my perspective, the main purpose is not education, but guide to solve a specific issue, a specific problem that your target audience have. Education can be a side product, but instructional videos should be as brief as possible. We said in the last webinar, we are trying to target 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 7, but not 20, 30 minutes, not an online modules of courses. That's a different thing, and that would be approached totally differently. And last reminder is, if you can explain your message in form of textual file, maybe with few still images or graphs, then don't waste your time trying to do a video out of it. We read faster, so people who will read your document will get what they need faster than watching and listening to a video. That was my first slide. Moving further. Not everybody in submitted proposals included target audience. I think it's really important to think about it and define it before you start your project. There was 1 or 2 proposals that mentioned as a target audience general public. It's not so good, because what does it really mean? You cannot focus your message if your audience is a general public. And I believe that in most cases we can narrow down at least some portion of the general public that you expect is your primary target audience. So try to define that. Then I included 2 examples which I think are pretty good of target audience. Low-income residents receiving refrigerator pickle kits from UC personnel and volunteers at local food bank distribution sites. That defines very well for whom that video is. And similarly, the second one, dairy producers currently managing or planning to construct a compost bedded pig barn. So this is very specific, very nice to work with. Then it also helps you to start, when you start to write a script, you can use the definition of your target audience in the first few sentences to directly address them. And that's what I try to show as an example below. This video will help anybody with, let's say, cockroaches pest problem. And if I am the audience and I'm watching it and I don't have cockroaches, then maybe that video is not for me. But if I do, then yeah, I immediately know I'm watching the right video. That's my problem that I want to solve. Second one, do you want to achieve bumper tomato harvest? Then this video is for you. Slightly indirect, but again, you are targeting a specific part of public who may want to grow tomatoes. So do spend some time on defining well the target audience. Then I'm going to move into just few, actually I'll talk a little bit more about learning objectives, because there I thought there is a more space for improvement. And you see here 6 parts of learning objectives that I've extracted from the projects. I don't need to read them, but if you read them, you may realize, as I did, these are not really learning objectives. These are objectives of the people who want to create the video, or they may be objectives of some projects, but they are not really learning objectives because they are not defining what the target audience will learn, what skills, what knowledge, maybe what change in behaviors are expected to happen with the target audience after they see or watch that instructional video. So here is what I see as a learning objective. After watching this video, participants or viewers maybe will be able to explain the importance of light requirements for houseplant, summarize why our own sense of vision is not reliable for evaluating light conditions, evaluate light conditions, or list the issues. So what do you see? What I'm stressing are the verbs. What that person who is watching your video will be able to do, because that's really why we create instructional video. I put there also two crossed verbs, know and understand. Why those are not ideal? Because you cannot really verify them. How will you know whether that person after watching the video knows something more or understands something more? These are unmeasurable, so they are generally not considered a good verbs to use when writing learning objectives. Try to think about, if I want somebody to know, how I will verify. That person will need to be able to explain. We need to be able to list, memorize, or use better words, better verbs. And that brings me to a tool that I always use when I'm writing learning objectives, and that's a Bloom taxonomy of verbs. Original version of this Bloom taxonomy of verbs was developed sometimes in 1960s. And the verbs are clustered based on how cognitively demanding the activity that the verb is describing is. So first column, remembering, it's relatively easy, simple cognitive activity, while on the other side of spectrum, creating is the most advanced cognitive skill. The verbs were then revised. This list was revised in 1990s. So now it includes even verbs like tweeting and some other things that definitely were not in the common vocabulary in 1960s. You can download millions of versions of these Bloom's list from internet. None of them is perfect, but find one that will work for you and have it ready. Whenever you are writing learning objectives, have it and look at it, and it will inspire you and help you to clarify in your mind what do you expect from your target audience to be able to do or show or demonstrate after they finish watching your videos. And learning objectives can then also be transformed or used at the beginning of your script. And here is an example of a sentence from the script. In this video, I will explain management techniques to successfully operate your compost bedded peg barn and ways to monitor how well those techniques are working. So I didn't include the learning objective, but you can see the verbs that were taken from the learning objectives and used in the script. And that brings us into script writing. So what I have observed in several script examples that I have seen were very long sentences, which we tend to write when we are writing documents that are shared in written form. When you are going to talk in front of camera or recording your audio, you will realize that it's not comfortable to be reading the long sentences. It complicates the breathing and you're thinking about what you are saying. So write short sentences. It will help you much more when you are recording. Read it aloud, record your voice, listen to how it sounds. Does it actually sound how would normal person be talking? Because you want to make it as casual as possible when people are watching it, so they don't see it as an academic talk. It's also a good practice to measure the time it takes to read your whole script, because then you suddenly may realize, I'm no way to fit into the 3 minutes. I'm now in 7 minutes and I still haven't said everything what I wanted. So that can help you to see how extensive your topic actually is becoming. Common rule, avoid abbreviations. The important thing to remember, the broader your target audience, the lower the chance that they will know the abbreviations that you are using. The narrower the audience, then most possibly they are already familiar with some abbreviations that you may be using. But in general, just try to avoid them. Because we want to make it like a common, like if the people would be in the room with you, use some short motivation, some cheering phrases like, let's get started, let's move to the next step, which you would normally not include in the written document. And then just one trick that helps me, when I have the script written, I go through it and I highlight or bold the most important parts of the script that I really, the messages that I really want people to take away and remember. And I make sure that they stand out, that they are not hidden in the ballast of other information around. And I also make sure that at the time when these key messages are being read or presented, the visual part is not distracting, that the visual part well accompany what's being said and explained. That will help to make your instructional video successful, that people will go away and remember the key parts. One thing, when I was reading, I picked few example of sentences and show how I would change them. So somebody wrote in the video, in this short video, we will explain the role of. I believe, and from what I have learned and seen, it's more practical and more motivating, better working for the people who see your video if you say in these short videos, you will learn how to. That kind of draw your viewer more into than telling him, I will explain to you or I will show you. No, you will learn. After this video, you will know what to. Yeah. Second example, adding bedding not based on a time schedule, but based on moisture content is key. So you suddenly hear the word key at the very end of the sentence, and then you try to remember what that sentence was saying. So actually turn it vice versa and say at the very beginning of the sentence, the key for success in adding bedding based on moisture content. And then flip it to the opposite, do not use time schedule for this step. So it's more like if you are explaining it to students in the school, even though your audience are adults and professionals. It's easier to remember. And I am moving to my last slide, and that's about the storyboard. Actually, not many of people who submitted the proposal included the storyboards. They focused much more on scripts. But I want to encourage you to try to make the storyboard, because it will help you to think more about the visual components of your video. And I'll show you two examples of submitted projects for which I got permission, and you will see the difference. The also important thing that I want to mention is that in instructional videos or even in PR videos, the visual part should change at least every 5 to 7 seconds. If you are watching something for more than 5 or 7 seconds in average, you are after that time, the viewers are putting less attention. Now, if there is something actively happening, then it may be longer, maybe even 15 seconds, because there is a process being shown. But if it's a still image, then maybe it needs to be even shorter, just 2 to 3 seconds, depending on how complex the image is. But several people who submitted the proposals had long paragraphs of 5-6 sentences accompanied only with one visual proposal. And that to me was just too little visual idea for a lot of information presented in verbal form. And almost nobody proposed to put some text on the screen. So think about that when you are having an expert talking about something, you should actually place the expert to 1/3 of the screen, and then you have 2/3 of the screen to include the bullet points of the key points. Yeah, that can relatively easily be done in editing, which we will do in 2 weeks' time in the workshop, in another webinar. And so what I will show now is, voila, here is an example of script that was submitted by Catherine Soul. And it's about using refrigerator pickle kits to preserve vegetables at home. She phrased learning objectives slightly differently than maybe I would do. However, I've got a very clear idea what she wants to achieve. And then you can see here is a draft script. Maybe you can't. I'll try to move my screen further. Here it is. And so what Catherine did, she wrote the script and then at the end put into the brackets what will be there. That helps. However, as you can see, it's usually the whole paragraph with one idea for shot. And it will need much more thinking further in order to make that video more dynamic, more interesting. And that's exactly why I'm trying to push everybody who is participating to really try to do a storyboard. And to prove it, I'll show you another example, and that's here. And that's a storyboard that was submitted by Randall Oliver. I'm sorry, I'll fix it so that you can see it well. Maybe the letters are very small. But you can see he used similar template as we have presented last time, shot 1, 2, 3, 4. In each shot, he described well what the action will be, what's happening visually, what the dialogue, what the narration will be. And he also used the effect, starting wide and then closing in, zooming in as an example. Here is the next, next 4 shots. And he actually developed it for all, I think altogether about 16 shots. And honestly, by going through this, I think I have a perfect idea what his vision is. It's much easier to have discussion about what may work, what may be done differently. Of course, there is no one perfect way. Each of us may do things differently. If we get the same topic, there will be no videos exactly the same, and that's fine. But this visual part was extremely helpful for me, and I believe it will be also helpful for the team that Randall is working with, because he's able to present them his vision very clearly. And I'm talking a lot. So that was all for the summary of what I have learned by looking at few proposals that we have received. And that reminds me about one more thing that I wanted to show. Once you have the script or storyboard, it will also help you then to go through this checklist. So this is a reminder that on the website that David shared at the beginning and which was also in chat, there is a link to this UCANR video production checklist, which is just a draft. You can add more items for you there. Just to be sure you have all the props, you have considered all things related to the recording, be it indoor, outdoor, light, and everything what you need. If you have the script, if you have the storyboard, you will be able to prepare much more detailed and more useful checklist for your project. And that brings us to video and audio capture. And that, so I'm happy to pass now the virtual microphone to Dustin.
Thank you. All right, so first, I don't know if you guys know how to do this or not, but I'm going to be showing you some things on the screen. So if you look at the picture of me and you move your mouse over me, you'll see 3 little dots, and click on that and then do pin video, and it'll make me really big. And then you can see the things we're doing. This is like, 4th grade where I'm going to do show and tell. So you'll be able to see a little better if you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have a little 2-inch screen. I'm going to hold stuff up and it's just going to look like a little piece of metal. So I wanted to go over some of the equipment that we use and show you how to put it together, how to make it work. I'm not going to show you how to use any of the software or anything like that, but just go over the equipment. So probably the most important thing for making good looking videos on your own is going to be a tripod. A video that shakes is very disturbing and hard to follow. And if you don't have an assistant, right now it might be kind of difficult to get an assistant. Having a tripod would really help. So really, any kind of tripod will work. You don't need to get an expensive one, nothing fancy. A camera that, like, for your cell phone only weighs a few ounces. So you don't need to have something substantial. So this is a substantial tripod. This is more than you need. This has a panning head. It's not a video panning head, but you can see it's got levers and stuff. If you've got something like this, it'll work just fine. But this is serious overkill. It weighs about 8 pounds, and your cell phone doesn't need that. Probably more like what you need is this El Cheapo one from, this is a Dolik aluminum tripod. It's not bottom barrel, but it's probably about, $50 for this one. And what I wanted to show you is it has a ball head. So a ball head is not very complicated. You just turn this little dial and you can rotate any way you need to. These are a little easier to use than trying to deal with 3 levers to control how to attach anything. And then your tripod's going to come on the head with some kind of plate like this. So you see the cork on it with the screw. You can remove these. You don't necessarily have to have them on there where you're trying to connect stuff. So tripod's really important. The next thing you're going to need is some mechanism to connect your phone to the tripod. And so there's a whole bunch of really cheap tools that do this. This is a El Cheapo plastic bracket. I think this one cost probably $6 and it came with 2. This one has a nice ability to turn it sideways, which is neat. And then they all work with some kind of screw to make them lighter. Some of them are spring-loaded, others aren't. This is one cheap brand. This is a nicer version. This one is metal. And the thing that sets this one apart, being metal, you know, it's a little tougher. But what I wanted to show you on this is, let's see if we can get this straight. So if you look at the top, you can see a slot right here. That slot's really important. The slot lets you slide a light into it. So you'll mount your phone inside here, and then you mount this onto the tripod, and then you can use your light in there. And so I've got a little video I'm going to show you because I thought it'd be more efficient than trying to get all this to work on my desk. So stand by a second, I'm going to play a video for you. Hopefully this isn't too blastingly loud. Okay. So hopefully that should have shown how to connect everything. There's some other stuff I wanted to show you too about connecting things. So I mentioned in the video there's a dongle. So if you have a modern phone, this is a Google Pixel, and I think the new iPhones, there's no headphone jacks anywhere on it. And so your equipment that we're recommending is all wired equipment. You're welcome to use things like Bluetooth, but it can be more complicated and there's more that can go wrong. And so, you know, wires are dead simple, easy. So we're advocating wires. But if you have one of these modern phones, it should have come with a dongle. They don't always come with them, but what it does is it lets you plug into your little USB port, and that end of it is where the headphone jack would be. So it replaces your headphone jack. If you've got an ancient old phone, like this old iPhone, it's got one of those built into it. So you don't need that for those. So it's really important to have some sort of input jack, because you're going to want to use a microphone to do your recording. If you record with just the sound, and we'll show you an example in a bit, that's built into your phone, it's not very clear, and you have to be very close to the person. So you're going to want to use some kind of mic. One version of the mic is this. It's a shotgun mic. It's got a little foamy cover on it to help with the wind. The little jack is right there. If you look underneath it, you can see the brains of it. So the end of it right there where the little grid is, that's the part that's going to get the sound. These are kind of nice for doing recordings when it's not possible to wire somebody up, because it's a directional mic. So it aims, wherever you're pointing it, that's where it's going to record. So if a person is moving or walking and you're not facing it, or you're doing an interview with two people, you're gonna have to make sure you turn to face them. So it's kind of a downside. They're also more likely to pick up environmental noise. So it's not my first choice of a recording mic, but it's good to have anyways. It's good for if you're going out like in a garden or something, you just want to get some environmental sounds or sounds of a thing happening, like turning a crank or opening a gate, something like that. Those are good. The more important kind of mic you're going to want to have is a lapel mic or a lav mic. And this is the kind like when you watch someone on TV, like your newscaster, and they've got a little mic, attached right here. That's what these are. So professional ones have a little wire that is going to go to a little pack that goes in your pocket, and then there's a receiver on the other end. The kind we're using, it's just a mess of wires. And so you're going to, generally what you do with these things, it's going to be hard to see. I got my busy Hawaiian shirt on. I should have worn something simpler. But you're going to take it. I'm not going to show you my stomach, but run it underneath your shirt. Then you're going to pop it through. Usually put a little loop in it and connect it somewhere about even with your armpits. And that's a really good way to put that in someone so you don't really see much of the wire. If it's not possible to do that, some outfits it just doesn't work. Like, for example, if you're wearing a t-shirt, you could just directly clip it right onto the shirt itself. Or if a person's wearing a jacket, you can put it on the inside of the jacket. It's even possible to put it on, a lapel here. The key is to be close to the mouth and try to, best you can, face it forward. If you put this under someone's jacket and they're moving, any motion like this, it's going to get picked up on the mic. So it's important to try to do it in such a way that there's not going to be any rubbing going on. You can use these to record like an interview on a table. You can put it, behind a plant or something. But for the most part, conversation you record, you'd use something like this. So to hook these up, I wanted to show you the connector on this. So hopefully I can make this work. So if you notice the connector on there, you see 3 bands and a point at the end. This is called a TRRS connector. And this is the kind of connector that cell phones use. And so it's important if you're going to buy a model that's different than our equipment list, that it says TRRS if you're going to be using it on the cell phone. And you just connect it into your dongle or directly into the phone. Some of the ones you'll see look like this. This is a TRS connector. And this is what you're going to use if you were going to record directly into a computer like a laptop or a DSLR camera. So if you have like a real camera like this, you can record videos with these too. But that's the kind of connection you have to make that work. This little device here is a converter between the two. So I bought a TRRS mic, and then if I want to plug it into my camera, I put this converter on it. So the kit that we recommend, assuming you can find it, because things are kind of hard to find on Amazon right now, it comes with the mic, it comes with an extension cord to make it extra long, and it comes with this converter. So it's a nice little setup, and it's only about 30 bucks. Then other things that I wanted to show you is lights. So sitting here, keeping me lit up so you can see I have shadow, I have a light that is shining on me. And so I'll blind you with this, but there's the light. So this is an LED light, and I've got it attached to a tabletop tripod. These are really cheap. You can get these next to nothing. They're like 10 bucks. And they're really handy to have to hold things like lights. This is a newer camera. It comes in a box like this. And it's about 30 bucks for this light. This light's really nice. So the actual light itself is in here on these little, bunch of little tiny Christmas light LED things. It comes with a little diffuser, which makes for a little bit nicer looking light. The other thing it comes with, which is really handy, is so this diffuser is good for natural lighting. So if you're outside or inside, kind of a room like I'm in right now, this will help match the color of that light. But if you're filming at nighttime and you're using incandescent lights, like in your living room, it comes with a little orange that you can put on instead. And that makes the same kind of light that you'd have out of a tungsten light. So this is really handy to have. So this kit's nice. They run on 6 batteries, like regular AA's, and it blows through them really fast. So what I recommend if you're gonna buy this kind of light, it's a CN160. If you just type that into Amazon, CN160, you get the right light. It comes with, you can get a battery that matches it. And this battery is, it's definitely worth having. It comes with a 2-pack, and it's got a charger for it. And highly recommend getting that. So it saves your batteries. It lasts a lot longer. The other thing that's cool about this light is if you decide to do your filming with a Sony camera or a Panasonic camera, it's compatible with those batteries that work for those cameras. So you don't have to have yet another set of batteries. So really good system there. They're not very expensive. I have 2 of them. That way if I have really challenging lighting, I can go any way I want. At the bare minimum, I recommend getting something like this light. This is a, if I can pronounce this right, Ulanzi Select W49 LED. It's got like 49 little LEDs. It's not nearly as powerful, but it does the trick. This is really easy to mount on top of that little bracket to light up a face of a person. It's not going to do anything very far away, but for 4 or 5 feet, it's adequate. Because this light is really small, it makes really hard shadows. So that's kind of a downside, but it's like 15 bucks, really cheap. And it's got these little, there we go, that's my little shoes on it. So you can actually connect multiple of these together. So you could have 5 or 6 of them if you really like this particular brand of light. You can have them all on. Downside of this being cheap, it's really hard to adjust the light level. It pretty much is, barely on, medium and full blast, even though it rotates. So you don't have very good control over that. But for the price, you don't have to worry about losing it or anything. Then the final thing I wanted to show you is a reflector. So one of the most essential tools that I use when I do photography or if I'm doing video is a 5-in-1 reflector. These are not expensive. There's lots of different brands. They're going to come in a round case like this. It's about, 14 inches in the case. And inside it, it's kind of like one of those sun visor things for your windshield in your car. It's going to have, watch this, it gets big. Turns into a big reflector. These are so handy because they can light up a person's face. You can see how I can totally change things here. One side is silver. Other side is black. Most of the black I just use for a neutral background if I need something, or if I want to make shadows. The other cool things that this has is on the inside it unzips. I'm stuck here, okay. So inside here, I peel it back, there's this white fabric ring. This is called a diffuser. And if you are in bright, direct sunlight, like in the middle of the day and the sun is straight ahead, and you try to film somebody, their face is all going to be either in shadow if the sun is behind their head, or if it's in front of them, all their nose and their chin is going to be black. It's going to look terrible. So if you hold this over somebody's head and then film their face, you get nice soft lighting and they're going to be really clear. So diffusers are fantastic for that. The reflector side, the silver part, you would use that to fill in shadows. So if the sun is lower in the sky, or you're shooting with the light over their shoulder, you can use a reflector to bounce the light in their face. If you want good bright light, like say that you're not in a hugely lit area, maybe you're like in a park or something and there's mixed light, the silver is really good. If it's just full on, you're in a field and it's really bright, what you're going to want to use is this side here. This is white. So it's not reflectorized, it's just a plain white panel. That's going to give you a little softer reflection and it won't blind the person you're talking to. And then the other side it has, which you're not going to be using much, is gold. It just makes people's complexion look a little nicer. So that's more of a photography thing, and you're going to create issues with recording by using the gold, so stay away from it. But that's the 5-in-1 reflector. This is my personal reflector, so it's huge. The one that we recommend the class is quite a bit smaller, right? So this is maybe about 10 inches all rolled up. And this particular brand has one thing that really is nice. I'm gonna be buried in here and I'm not gonna be able to get out after this. So what this one has is a handle. It's got handles on both sides. So it's really easy for somebody to help you out as an assistant. They can easily tilt it and move it in any direction they need to. So that's really cool. And then it comes with a little hook. So you can take this hook and you can hook the handle on this, and you can mount it on something like a tripod or a flash stand or a light stand. So it's like having an assistant hold the light for you and you don't have to worry about it. So the final show and tell here is just a flash stand. So I'll try to send this across the screen. So it's like a tripod, but it's kind of flimsy. And what it's for is for holding lighting equipment. So it telescopes out. I use them a lot when I use flash photography, but it works great to hold those video lights. When you buy these, they're going to come with, sometimes they'll come with a head on them. And these heads are meant for holding cameras or lights. It's like the bracket that I showed you for the iPod. It's got a shoe at the end that you can hold the light with. And there's all sorts of different versions of these. This is the world's cheapest one. It's, I think, like a $5 one on Amazon. It's got a hole through it right there. And what you can do with the hole, if you want to make nice, beautiful lighting on your subject, you can put a clear umbrella through here. But I'm not going to explain how that works, but that's what the hole's for. This is a nicer version of that. You don't really need to buy that though. So when you get one of these, it's going to have a brass or a silver end on it. You can just unscrew it, and there'll be some kind of screw at the end, and that screw will fit in the bottom of your LED light. So you don't need to buy that expensive head. But these are really handy to have if you don't have an assistant handy. They're not as expensive as a real tripod. You can get a set of 2 of these for like 25 bucks. Do note that they blow over in the wind. So if there's any kind of wind going on, it's going to crash because they're not real stable. They get about 7 feet tall. And I think that's all that I had for show and tell. And I think this would be a good time if there's equipment on the show and tell stuff, I can answer it.
So Dustin, let me take a stab at a couple here. couple about GoPros and just GoPros being able to be used to do this kind of work and or used with any of the equipment that you just shared. Your thoughts?
So I wouldn't recommend a GoPro. I mean, it could work. You're still going to have to use a tripod to make it stable unless you have a gimbal for it. GoPro is a really wide angle. And so you're going to have a lot of busyness going on in the background, or you're going to have to mash it really close to the person's face. And so there's going to be kind of an interesting distortion going on to their face that may not be flattering. Like you'll probably see up inside their nostrils and stuff. So I wouldn't recommend a GoPro. But if you have it, it's better than nothing.
Okay, let me then group a couple of questions here about mics. So just to reiterate again, the two types of mics you showed, and then also with the lapel or lavalier mic, what works best to minimize ambient noise? What pattern is the question?
I just try to keep it as close to my mouth as I can, and then sometimes you still get it, and try to turn your body so there's no wind blowing across it. That's about all I know. I mean, I'm not an expert with audio capture, but that seems to work pretty well.
And then you showed us a shotgun mic and a lapel mic, right?
Right.
The two different kinds.
That was a shotgun mic. This is a real cheapy one. There's really nice quality ones you can get that are going to record better. You can get this dead cat thing to put on it to help deaden the wind. It comes with a little bit of this foam fuzz, which is better than nothing, but I've tried this particular mic out and it picks up wind pretty good.
Okay. And then just to reiterate, someone's asking, can only use a TRRS or TRSS? What can I use with my iPhone? What can I use with my camera? And are they interchangeable or not?
Okay, so for your phone, you need TRRS. For your regular camera, usually it's TRS, but you can get an adapter for like this. It came with my kit, but they only cost a couple bucks, and it converts it to the right kind of pin.
So then I want to give a question to Petter, and then we should move on with the other content. There's a full equipment list and even some prices for you that we'll make sure you all know about today before we leave. A couple questions about prices. That's why I'm deferring those questions that way. But Petter, there was this question early on about, to keep it conversational, do you necessarily need to write a script? What thoughts do you have that way?
Two things. If you want to make sure that you state, or whomever you are interviewing, all the important points and don't forget anything, then you need to write it down. And if you want to fit in the time frame, let's say into 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes, again, it's hard to do when you have a conversational tone. You again will be much better writing it down and testing that you are within the time frame that your target is. If you don't have a target and you don't mind to go for 5-10 minutes and you are sure that your audience will be watching it, go conversational.
Okay. All right, great. Well, this might be a good chance to turn to audio examples. And so maybe, Petter, if you're ready, kind of helping us see that. And we've got just over a half hour left, just to kind of cue us up there.
Yes. So I will play 2 examples of the audio that we got from the YouTube that will show what difference a good microphone can make.
So my name is Olivier Dessin, and I'm the owner and chef of Millefeuille Bakery Cafe. I opened that shop a year ago, and in New York City. I just come from Paris. So my name is Olivier Dessin, and I'm the owner and chef of Millefeuille Bakery Cafe. I opened that shop a year ago, and in New York City. I just come from Paris.
So we're here in Panama at Playa Teta, where I'm super stoked because I get to surf today with one of the world's top big wave surfers, legendary Ian Walsh. And Ian is going to teach me today how to catch a wave and how to do a bottom turn. So we're here in Panama at Playa Teta, where I'm super stoked because I get to surf today with one of the world's top big wave surfers, legendary Ian Walsh. And Ian is going to teach me today how to catch a wave and how to do a bottom turn.
So I think it was pretty clear the difference that a shotgun microphone also correctly directed can make, even in difficult environmental conditions where you just in the beach possibly hardly find a spot where there would be no wind, or in the environmental noise like in the bakery. So that, I think, kind of justifies investment into a microphone. And the second one is about four minutes video where a guy shows the difference it makes to use a cell phone with a built-in microphone, meaning nothing extra, with shotgun, and with lavalier lapel.
Hey there, Internet fans. It's Ryan Perry. I'm out front of the office today, shooting next to a busy 4-lane road, doing a microphone test for cell phones. I'm shooting on my LG 4, and I started this shoot off using a wireless microphone. This is the Azden Pro XD. This is the unit right here. The nice thing about it, it has a sending unit and a receiving unit, and one of the real pros about it is the fact that the lapel mic is attached to me, therefore I can really control the sound quality even though I'm around all this traffic. The other nice thing is I can walk away and my voice doesn't drop off because the mic is actually staying with me versus just using the microphone on the camera or something like this, the Rode VideoMic ME. This is a great little mic that actually plugs right into the camera. It actually can rotate, which is nice. So if you're doing the forward-facing camera or the back-facing camera, you can actually flip it depending on which person you want to talk to. The one downside is that the farther you walk away, the voice is going to fall off. The other thing I forgot to mention about the Azden that I'm recording on right now is the fact that it actually has volume control. So I can actually adjust the amount of volume going into the camera. I can bring it down or I can bring it up depending on the device, so you can actually fine tune. So I'm going to end this video. I'm going to plug the Rode in, and let's see what the sound quality is with this device. I'm at the same location. We got traffic going by. Now I'm shooting with the Rode Mic ME. This is about a $60 unit. It's a great device. The other thing that's really nice about it is you can get one of these. This is called a Dead Cat, and what it is, it's a windscreen, so that if you have a lot of wind going by, those type of things, it's going to diffuse that sound so you don't hear it. It is a directional mic, so you want to make sure that you do point it. However, since it is a microphone, it's designed to pick up voices close to it, so as you start walking away, the voice and the sound is going to drop off very, very quickly. In fact, I'm not sure how much of that you actually noticed, but you should have heard the sound dropping off as I walked away, and then it gets progressively louder as we get together. So one of the downsides is if you're going to have multiple people, you want to make sure that they're all pretty much within equal distance of the microphone and that they're facing the microphone itself. Now the last test I want to run is on the actual cell phone, which has a built-in microphone. So let's go check that out now. This is using the built-in microphone on my LG 4. Now typically, most smartphones, the microphone is relatively good. However, typically if you use something that's aftermarket, such as this Rode or the Azden wireless, your sound quality is going to be that much better. Now, typical problems that you're going to run into with the cell phone is that if I walk away, the voice is going to drop off. And again, I don't know how much you're actually hearing. I have no idea how much you actually heard there since I walked away. The other problem is, right now I'm shooting this video on the front-facing camera, which limits me to 720 DPI. That's still high def, but it's not true 1080. If I was on the other side of the camera, on the back side, I would actually get full 1080p. And the problem is, there's no microphone on the other side, so the sound quality would be horrible. And that was a garbage truck driving by. I'm sure we heard that pretty well. So this concludes the test of the 3 different microphones, one being the built-in microphone on the LG 4, the other one being the Rode Mic ME, and then the Asden Pro XD wireless mic. Would love to know your thoughts on this video. What did you like? Be sure to share it, like, and comment below. Take care.
I will stop it here. I think the difference is stunning, but I can also go back a little bit. I think this guy was not using any script, and he has done great job going just conversational, but at one moment he had to go back because he forgot to say something, then he loses the track, and actually the whole video was also 4.5 minutes, and I think if he had the script, he could easily do it in below 3 minutes. So this is a nice example that you were watching and you've spent extra minute and a half on something that could be more compacted with less words. Now, another example of even if you have a perfect equipment, things can still go wrong. And I've got two pieces of video from UCANR videographer Ray Lucas, who is a professional and has a great equipment. But sometimes you can't change what's going on around. So here we were recording an audio to accompany a video with Jalendra Rijal, and see what happened there.
Starting in mid-March.
Now, when that thing was over, there was a truck parking behind us downloading stuff. So we spent like an extra 15-20 minutes just waiting when the ambience noise for the moments when we were able to record a good sound. But sometimes you can't do even that because you are recording the person with very busy schedule, and you have to do it when you have the person in front of you. And then maybe you have to compromise and work with the audio that you get. Here is an example.
As soon as these guys go by.
One more here. Two more here.
As this guy goes by, you're just gonna read it.
Don't worry about looking at you.
You can just go ahead.
Okay. There are other costs from our unused food. We all lose out on shared resources such as the... That didn't seem like a good time. Ready?
Yeah, and so be ready that you will need to do some shots 2, 3, 4 times until you get that sound of reasonable quality. These were the audio examples that I had ready, and now what we do have is that our colleague Jolene Miller spent this weekend, or part of this weekend, recording different angles of the video to consider when you are preparing, when you are recording the video. Jolene, do you want to have some introduction?
Sure, I just wanted to say that my goal was to give you guys ideas of angles to use. I didn't take into account at all lighting or anything else like that. So be kind, that's all. But also we're gonna go over it and we'll talk about some of the things that I could have done better. But I did this all by myself, so that's one thing that you can do these things by yourself without having an assistant.
How cool was that? So what was your feeling about different shots, Jolene? What you like, what you thought was difficult? What would you
Yeah, so I mean, I did quite a few shots or takes at once. And then so my each of those takes were probably a minute or two long, and then I was able to edit them down pretty easily. That saved me time from like walking out to the location and back to hit stop and back and forth. And then there was, you know, I did not follow the rule of storyboarding, so I did not take with me, you know, a checklist of all of the angles. I thought I could remember them all, of course, and so I got as many done and went back into the house and started editing and realized I needed more and had to go back out. And things like that. So I just, again, I highly recommend, even though I don't follow the recommendations, of the storyboard idea.
Now, in terms of positioning yourself on the screen light, what would you do differently if you do it again?
Positioning myself on the screen. I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. Like,
I've noticed that in most of the shots, you actually stood in the center of the screen. In general, what is recommended, there are always exceptions, is to use a rule of third. So you divide the screen in 3/3 vertically and horizontally, and
yes.
you position the subject in the 2/3 in front, 1/3 behind. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my goal was really to just, I could have done it. For those of you, I also did a whole second video of just a bear, not me, and it was just to show that, you know, the close up, the ups and downs, not the rule of thirds. But yes, absolutely. If it were an actual video, there would be other ways to set myself up. Mm-hmm.
Dustin, do you have any comments from your side?
That's probably the same ones I had. The rule of third thing really, you know, because I take pictures, that was kind of like obvious. But otherwise, I really liked it. The good use of the being up high and down low. I think that was good to see what those kind of shots end up being like.
The other thing that I wish I could have figured out how to do was a better way to pan with a dolly or something like that. I was in rocks and I didn't have the equipment, but those are other ideas for video shots that you can do, where you have a dolly or something that you're able to slide close and back. You would also need a person to do that, you know, a person to help you with that. But it was.
Peter or Dustin, I'm wondering, one thing to add to what Jolene's great demonstrations share with us, what is B-roll? Can you help us know what we need to do there? We've planned our project, we've got these different angles and things we want to capture, but what is B-roll and why would we want it?
It's like accessory shots that, you know, set the mood or fuller, you know, illustrate what you're trying to show. It's also good to have this extra footage. So let's say you have to splice an interview or, you know, some kind of headshot. You know, you need to hide that splice so they don't go like suddenly here to over here. You can put some B-roll over the top of that, make the transition, and then it's not real clear that happened. So it's like extra shots.
And the same would apply to audio. Record also 0.5 minute to 1 minute of the sound of the environment where you are without anybody speaking, so that you have this empty audio that you may squeeze in when you are editing. You may find it useful. The other thing I wanted to point also is whether you have noticed that when you are taking the shot from the upper angle, it gives the impression that the subject is smaller. And obviously, if you are taking the shot from down up, it gives the opposite impression that your subject is bigger. So you can also play with this idea. It's really important to find comfortable distance from the person who is the one being filmed, whether it's an interviewee or the person doing some task, so that you are not too close to them uncomfortably, but you also don't have too many distracting things around, like in those very wide shots. Now, to keep the time, we have 3 more examples of the videos that we got from internet. some of them are examples of things that might be improved, and some of them are things that we think are pretty well done given the equipment they were using. So I'll share the first one.
Again.
Hi, I'm Valerie and I'm a pet care advisor, and this is my cat Stevie. Stevie is a 9-year-old Pixie Bob. He's a long-coated Pixie Bob, and today we're going to show you how to brush and care for a long-haired cat's coat. Now, you may notice that Stevie is not a long-haired cat on his body right now because I choose to keep him clipped. About once a year, I shave him in a line cut, and it's about 3 months grown out right now, but it keeps him a lot more comfortable. His fur tangles very easily, so it's just an easier situation for both he and I if I keep him clipped. Now, the rest of him still does need attention and grooming. His tail has still got a lot of fur underneath, and of course his ruff. The tool that I like the most is a slicker brush. A slicker brush has little fine wire teeth. They come in different sizes. This one is a big one for a dog, but this actually has little plastic balls on top of the wires if you have a very sensitive pet and you don't want to worry about scratching them. But really, they don't seem to mind that light pressure with the slicker brush. So on the short areas here, and even if you had a short-coated cat, the slicker brush is going to remove any tangles, and it's going to pull out any undercoat. Now you want to, on the face area here, just go gently underneath the ruff. You want to make sure that you're pulling in and getting all the loose undercoat out. Make sure to get into the underarm area here, even on his belly. Make sure that there's no tangles there. Some other grooming tools would be a pin brush, and a pin brush really doesn't remove any fur along the short areas. It's good for the long bushy tail area here. You can see that it's pulling some of the undercoat out of the tail. There's also metal combs that can be used for removing the loose fur. You can see how much is coming out there. So you want to give a head-to-toe brushing about once a week to keep your cat's fur healthy. It's going to help distribute oils. It's going to prevent hairballs because the more hair that you can pull out with the comb and brush, the less they're going to ingest. So every time you're finished with your grooming session, you want to make sure to give your cat a treat and tell him he's a good boy.
Okay. I think we are getting all right comments. Tripod, stabilizer, step back a little bit so that we can see when she was brushing the tail. Show instruments first. That's a very good idea too. Yeah. So maybe have a storyboard or at least have a point that you want to cover. Dustin, Jolene, anybody else wants to comment some other idea?
I think what I would have, suggested that she do is, of course, have a storyboard, but then just do lots of footage, stable footage, recording, the grooming process, and then I would have done a narration track and maybe some B-roll in there to try to, make it planned. You can't really plan what a cat's going to do, but at least by having a whole bunch of footage of the grooming process, you narrated it, you could have had something organized out of it.
There clearly was a dog lover in the chat for a minute there, but someone just suggested, I guess Dan Meyer just suggested, put the why at the beginning. Peter, back to your point about learning objectives. Wasn't really clear what we were going to learn at first.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, let's try another one. What will you think about this one?
Hey everybody, it's Jenny of the Jenny Evolution and of the Sensory Spectrum as well. Today we're talking about kids and tying shoes, which actually is a very frustrating act, especially for a lot of kids that have fine motor issues. I know my oldest, who's now 9, was wearing Velcro shoes for a number of years simply because he didn't have the finger dexterity and ability to manage the actual shoelaces. So today I'm going to show you a trick on how to get your kid to tie their shoelaces, even if they do have fine motor problems. Trust me, it can be done, and it's going to change your life in getting your kiddos to actually tie their own shoes. This is a terrific way to learn how to tie a shoe, which I actually learned from an OT. And I'm actually going to show you on my son's old ratty sneaker versus giving you a brand new sneaker, because this is actually the sneaker he uses, and quite honestly, it's just more real. So, in order to teach a child who has fine motor problems, you take both strands of the shoelaces and you do a once crossover. All right? Then what you're going to do is have the child take both strands again and do the exact same thing, but this time you're not going to pull it tight like a knot. You're going to leave a loop in the middle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take one strand and pull it through to make a little loop here. You're going to take your other strand and do it like this. Now it's easier for kids who have fine motor problems this way, because as you can see, I can let my fingers rest and it's not an issue. The tool isn't going to come apart. Then I take the two little things that I just made, pull, and look, I have loops. And if I want, I can pull them tighter, I can pull them looser, and also my son can then double knot them. Although the double knot really is a little bit tougher because you have to stick your hands through the loops. But it's super simple. And any kid with fine motor problems can learn how to tie their shoe. And it took my son several months to be able to get the dexterity in his fingers enough to be able to tie the shoe. But it's now been a full summer and we're well into the school year, and he does it without any problem. So try this trick at home. It will completely change how you get your kids to put their shoes on.
Okay. I see some great comments. I think what I like, there are many more things that I like on this video. Some people point that maybe the shoelaces could have been contrasting, light color, so they are better visible against the dark shoe. I would agree with that. I think it's great that there is a call for action. For more tips, visit the website, right? So that's also a good reminder for us that how to end the videos. Dustin, Jolene, Davids, what else did you see in the chat?
A lot of the comments, were like, what you just mentioned, recording also with the blinds behind with backlit wasn't very good. The reason why we like this video is it's a good example of just a complete amateur who's not, trying to make a living on this really. She gave up on videos years ago. But, it's got 2 shots. It's not complicated. It could have been edited on anything. And it addresses what's definitely a need. This video's had like 2.7 million views. And, she does know her audience. Somebody commented about not using abbreviation with OT. Her audience is people with autism and motor skill issues. So they're familiar with that abbreviation. I can tell you as a parent with that situation, this is a definite need. So she definitely identified a good need that somebody had. And then the thing that I really liked, well, the contrast wasn't good. When she filmed the shoe, she filmed it away like the person would be seeing it, whereas almost all the other videos of shoe tying that I've seen are the other way around. So she understood that the person doing it's going to need to see this, and I really like that. It's not professional in any way, but the sound is clear. It doesn't have polish, but it does what it needs to do, and it knows its audience really well. And she clearly practiced it, even if she didn't have a storyboard.
And you can Google that video on YouTube, whatever the verb would be, if you want to watch it without interruptions that may be created by Zoom, the slowing down the speed. Remember, we are so many people connected at the same time. And so the very last one.
Hi, my name is Marc Bauer. I'm from the French Culinary Institute. Today, I would like to show you how I slice a tomato. First, you remove the core with a paring knife by putting your thumb right about an inch from the point and place the thumb right in the middle of the core and twist in an angle. The core is removed. Once the core is removed, I like to use my utility knife. Now you have to make sure that your blade is sharp. Therefore, I will use steel and slide the blade all the way through from one side to the other of the steel a couple of times. That helps into my slicing through the tomato. Cut in half, and then you see I keep the point of the knife down on the table. You can see that sharp blade really helps in cutting through a tomato. Sliced tomatoes.
Okie dokie. Back to the sound. Please don't sharpen the blade using the knife towards you. I think that's a very bad thing. But apart of that, what did you like, what you didn't like in this video in terms of filming and narration? Good angles?
I enjoyed a lot of the different angles. A lot of different angles really made it engaging.
Brief, easy to understand, yes. Didn't mention the target audience, maybe because at some point of life, all of us have to cut tomatoes. No intro.
I thought it was, yeah, no intro, but I thought it was an interesting, just in the end, his parting words were sliced tomatoes, just to reaffirm what you were learning.
Actually, but I think he said at the beginning who he is and what he's going to show.
Yeah.
So I think there was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, both beginning and end. I thought it was a nice way to bookend the learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody asked about the green thing on the side. So the video is probably about 15 years old, and videos used to be recorded in 4:3 ratio. And so I don't know how Dini is, but somebody took a bunch of content and they stuck it onto YouTube about 11 years ago. But the original recording was probably done on older equipment, and that had that different ratio like your television set had. So I think it was just a clever way to take up some space on the side, and they could put little text on there if they needed to. That's why it was like that.
So, Petter, can I ask you to unshare, and we'll begin to wrap up here quickly?
Done.
Yeah, thank you. Now, why am I not finding mine? So we want to thank you all for joining us. I know we've got 3 or 4 questions left, and I think if you'll give us time, we'll just follow up afterwards. And make sure your questions get asked, answered, and we'll get you responses directly. So with that, let me just let you know that A&R is really going to step into this space and help us all get the equipment and the software we need. For our staff and our academics, there's the opportunity to support you to go get the software to do the editing, things like the mic or the tripods that you saw today, any of the equipment you saw Dustin go through. There is a complete equipment list on that website that I mentioned earlier for you to look at, that within about $150 to $200, knowing you already have a camera or a tablet, in fact, that's one of the questions, tablets can work for this work, that with about $150 to $200, you can get yourself up and running. By being on this webinar and then using this URL, this survey tool, you can go and request for support to get expenses reimbursed. And so that's how this will work, is you go on and you fill out this survey, it gets submitted to the strategic initiative leaders. They'll review it quickly and get you approval, get you an email with the account number to use to submit for your expense reimbursement. Clearly if you have a purchase card or you use Aggie Travel, you can do it that way, and we will give you the account to cover these expenses. And so with that, I just quickly want to wrap up and just talk about where we're at in terms of being about halfway through this 4-part series. You can back up and find the email blast that gave you direction on how to do the pre-project planning and using scripts and storyboards and the production checklist. This webinar is being recorded, and so will be available for others that couldn't attend, or for you to go back and listen to parts that you wanted to touch base with again. Again, next week will be late this week, early next week, we'll release another email blast with directions for editing and an exercise for you to follow through, A, how to get the software, and B, how some example cuts and pieces of video and audio for you to piece together. Dustin Blakey's putting that lesson plan together, and that'll be ready for you shortly. And then on May 12th, we'll come back together and have another webinar. We'll actually solicit input from you before that webinar to see what questions and things you're experiencing so that we make sure we use that time to have a discussion with you about what you need to learn more about and how we can support you to be successful. And I want to reiterate again at the bottom here is the 2 URLs that really have everything you need, that have that equipment list, that production list, the fact sheet on storyboards and templates for storyboards, as well as the second URL, the how-to videos, is tracking and building these lessons into online resources for you, so in-depth learning that you can continue to do. So with that, let me thank Dustin, Peter, and Jolynn, as well as PSU and the strategic initiatives. We thank you for joining us. We can stay on for a few more minutes, but I know it's a hard stop at 3 o'clock for many people. I know how this Zoom world works. You stop hard and you start hard. Many of you have other things to go to. So with that, thank you all that could join us. Maybe we'll tackle the couple remaining questions here. And just for those that want to stay on, can for another 2 to 3 minutes. Let's take up the tablet question. Dustin, Petter, can we use tablets? And are there brackets that hold those that hold tablets on the tripod and that sort of thing?
Yes, they make special brackets, and those have light holders and everything too.
And actually, colleague of us in A&R, Steve Elliott, is regularly using tablet, and there is a webinar with Steve recorded, which is also available from that website you have mentioned. And the equipment list that he created also includes what's needed for using tablet for recording. So that's all on the website.
Great.
On video tools.
Great. And then there was a couple different questions about using your wireless headphones and microphone that you might use just to listen in on a phone call. Are those usable to do this kind of work?
I've not had any experience using a wireless one. Like the one I'm wearing now, it's got a cable. I've recorded audio on it for the narration, and it works adequately. I get pretty clear sound through it. I can tell you, it's kind of just a little complaint, but the quality of the sound is different than the segments that I recorded with the lapel mic. So, that may or may not be a problem if you're trying to match how the audio sounds. But if you just do a narration or something, it comes out pretty clear.
And I've definitely, I've just heard and known that there's more things that can break. And I think Dustin had talked about more things can go wrong with the wireless.
Good. Folks asking for the survey again. So this is where you'd go to make a request for support to buy equipment and software. Okay, somewhat of an off-topic question, but I think an interesting one. This is from Ricky Satomi. It reads, what are your recommendations on how to handle UC archives of long-format webinar recordings? Is there value in retaining these resources, or should we only keep higher quality video formats to keep the subscriber, the viewer base engaged?
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
I was like, that's $1 million question.
I think maybe Linda would want to comment on that. It depends on where you host it on YouTube. Maybe that doesn't make much sense to put it on institutional YouTube account of UC A&R, but it can totally make sense for like UC IPM is sharing webinar that are specifically focused on handling pests. Once they become irrelevant after several years, because maybe there is a new method of how to handle the pest, then we will delete them. But for now, yeah, we have them there. And from the beginning, people can see that it's something that lasts an hour. Again, good description on YouTube is very important so that you don't disappoint your viewers.
Okay, yeah, good, good. Am I missing any other questions that we might want to make sure? Oh, just briefly, any recommendations relative to iPhone different from Android, or similar success in quality and product?
The hardware on the list all works with both. So they're all just plug in, as long as you have the dongle you need for the newer iPhones or Android. But yeah, they're kind of agnostic to which one you're using. If you start going wireless and weird stuff like that, and there's an app involved, you know, all bets are off.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay. Well, with that, let me just thank you again, Petter, Dustin, Jolene. What a great job you've done. PSU, thank you for your support. And with that, look for part 3 installment to be shortly out, and then we'll all get together again on May 12th. Thank you.